Hey guys, today we're going to work on our ab crunches and our tilt of our hip, which is very important to understand what's going on in there and to actually control the movement there, okay? So let's start from just laying down nice and flat on the floor. So as a lot of us might getting into this position might feel that their lower back's arching and they've got that little halo under the back in between the mat and the back, and then most people say it's natural. It's because of sitting and spending a lot of time with a bended leg, our hip flexors, which are here, they go really tight and then don't let us to actually stretch this muscle and get in the lower back nice and flat on the floor. So while we're doing crunches, it's very important to understand that we need to keep that lower back engaged and then push down to the floor, okay? So we're trying to get rid of that halo and then get rid of that space in between mat and your lower back. So if you just start from there, laying down, and then you try to push that lower back, and this is the most important movement for your core and for your ab crunches. So let's start from here. So if we don't keep that core activated and then the lower back on the mat, we end up with the arch, and then your core is not engaged and you might feel a little bit more tension in your lower back. So while we're lifting the leg up, we're not actually working your core, we're working the hip flexors, which are the long muscles coming from your quads. The quads attached to your hip, and then you're lifting your leg up, and there's nothing to do with your core. To try to get your core activated, I would start with just simple movements of pushing that lower back to the floor and then relaxing, and again push it. So you're trying to tilt that pelvis, posterior tilt, and lift that hip up a little bit and push the lower back towards the mat to get the core activated. And this is your bottom of the position, or bottom position of your ab crunches and everything you're doing. So once you bend your knees, you find that it's a little bit easier to keep your lower back on the mat, and again it's because the hip flexors now, where they're here, they really pull in and then rotate your hip that way. So when you bend your knees, we lose that tension in your hip flexors and we're more able to press that lower back. So while we're doing the ab crunches, anything might be a good thing to start with your legs. So your feet on the floor and your legs bended, that will give you a little bit more control over what's going on in your lower abs and in your hip, and then you will feel much more in your core every single exercise, okay? So that will be at the first start I would try to get. From this position, we push that lower back towards the mat, we tilt the pelvis, and then we try to keep that position, round position of your lower back there while we're doing crunches here, okay? And then you're going to activate much more of your core doing it this way than when you go all the way back, arching your back again, making that halo, and then core back down. So this is the wrong way of doing it. Chesting up and chest down. We're trying to keep that round position all the time, pushing the lower back down to the floor, and then keeping that activated and tense all the time. We're not losing the tension during the ab crunches. So what else can happen? We obviously got lots of crunches where we get legs on the front, and because this is your extra weight, you've got to understand this is much harder for core to hold it, especially if you want to keep that lower back on the mat. So why to make it so hard and not being able to keep actually your lower abs engaged? I would advise to bend your knees, so there's going to be a little bit less weight for your core. You can pull your knees towards you, and then you naturally will that engage your core and tilt your pelvis, because this is more core here, where we're just moving the hip up instead of just moving the legs up. So I want you to understand the difference and understand this is your extra weight, so you don't have to do with your don't have to do abs with your straight legs. You can slightly bend them or even pull them towards you to make it much easier for your core at this stage, and then work it properly. So you get a nice round back, keeping the lower back constantly on the mat, breathing out on the way up and squeezing your core.